Hello there. I'm so glad you're here. Whether you've just tucked yourself in or you've been lying in bed for a while, take a moment to notice how cozy you feel. Your pillow cradling your head, the soft weight of your blanket, the quiet hush of the evening wrapping around you like a gentle embrace. This is your time to rest. And while your body relaxes, your mind can wander peacefully, curiously, through the corridors of history. Tonight, we're traveling far back in time to a world of ancient cities, mighty empires, and mysterious endings. This is the story of the collapse of the Bronze Age, a moment when civilizations that had thrived for centuries suddenly fell silent. So take a deep breath, let your eyes grow heavy, and let's begin.
My name is Sir Aldrich of Dunmere, Knight of the Realm, sworn to the crown and servant to honour. I've seen 29 winters, and each one has carved its mark upon me, some deeper than steel ever could. You may think a knight's life is all glory and gold, but let me tell you, it's grit, it's duty, and it's waking before the sun to earn your place in a world that never stops testing you. Let me take you through a day in my life, one of many, one of war, of sweat, of quiet moments beneath the stars. This is not legend. This is truth. They say the rooster crows at dawn. Mine crows at me like I owe him coin. I wake before the sun, the chill biting through the stone walls of my chamber. No fire left in the hearth. Just me, my sword, and the scent of damp straw. I rise, my joints protest. Yesterday's training still lingers in my bones. I splash cold water on my face from the basin. No luxury here, just discipline. Breakfast, if you can call it that. A hunk of rye bread, a wedge of hard cheese and watered ale. Sometimes a boiled egg, if the hens were generous. I eat quickly. The day waits for no man. By the time the sun peeks over the ramparts, I'm already in the yard. Sword drills, shield work, mounted combat. The squires watch, wide-eyed, dreaming of glory. I tell them, glory is earned in sweat long before it's bathed in blood. We spar until our arms ache. The master-at-arms barks commands. I obey. A knight must be sharp, in blade and in mind. After training, I meet with the steward. Land disputes, grain levies, a merchant accused of short weights. Being a knight isn't just steel and saddle, it's justice too. I listen, I judge, I try to be fair. Then comes the horn. A rider arrives, breathless, bandits near the eastern wood. I don my mail, strap on my greaves, and mount my destrier. His name is Bramble, and he's meaner than I am. We ride hard. The forest looms, shadows dance. The clash is sudden, steel on steel, cries of pain, the thunder of hooves. I fight like I was born to it. One bandit falls, then another. My shield splinters. My sword sings. Victory, but not without cost. A young squire lies wounded. I kneel beside him. He'll live, but he'll carry the scar. We return at dusk. The castle gates rise to greet us. I dismount, aching, bloodied, but proud. Supper is hearty. Roasted venison, turnips, and thick stew. I eat with my brothers in arms. We laugh. We mourn. We drink. Later, I walk the battlements alone. The stars above remind me how small we are. Yet here I stand, guardian of this realm, servant of honor. Tomorrow the rooster will crow again, and I will rise.
They call me Isolde. Not the princess from the songs. No, I'm the kind of woman they don't think about. I work behind velvet curtains and candle smoke in a brothel tucked between the butcher's yard and the chapel. The irony isn't lost on me. I've been in this trade since I was 16. Not by choice, but by necessity. When your father drinks your dowry and your mother dies of fever, you learn quickly that survival doesn't care about virtue. I've seen all kinds: drunk squires, weeping widowers, priests with trembling hands. I've learned how to read a man before he speaks, how to soothe, how to distract, how to disappear when needed. But the night I nearly died, that was the feast of Saint Bartholomew. The city was swollen with nobles and soldiers, and the air stank of wine and ambition. That was the night the nobles bled. The brothel was humming like a hive. Madame had us painted and perfumed like royal courtesans. She said tonight was special. Coin would flow like mead, and discretion would be worth its weight in gold. I was assigned to a man they called Lord Veron, a name that stank of power. He came cloaked, face hidden, voice like gravel. Paid in gold florins, more than a month's worth for a single night. But his eyes were wrong, cold, calculating, not lustful, like he was hunting. We climbed the stairs to the Red Chamber. I poured wine, played the part. He barely touched it. He asked questions about a courier who'd passed through days before, about a letter. I told him I knew nothing. He didn't believe me. Then he locked the door. I've seen violence. I've stitched up my own wounds. But there was something in his stillness that chilled me more than any blade. He drew a dagger, not for pleasure, not for show, for silence. He said I had one chance to speak, that if I'd seen the courier, if I'd touched the letter, I'd die with that knowledge. I told him again. I knew nothing. He stepped closer. I had seconds. I threw the wine in his face, screamed loud enough to wake the dead. The guards burst in. He slashed one across the throat before they took him down. Blood sprayed across the velvet walls. The other girls screamed. Madame fainted. Turns out he wasn't a lord at all. Just a spy, sent to silence anyone who'd seen the letter. I hadn't, but I'd been close. Too close. They dragged his body out before dawn. The guard who died, his name was Thomas. He used to sneak me apples from the kitchen. I cried for him, quietly, alone. Madame gave me the next week off, said I'd earned it. I spent it watching the alley from my window, dagger under my pillow. Every knock at the door made my heart race. Every shadow felt like a threat. When I returned, the girls treated me like a ghost. Some whispered that I'd cursed the room. Others said I was lucky. I don't believe in luck. I believe in instinct, in grit, in knowing when to fight and when to flee. That night taught me something. In my line of work, danger doesn't always wear armor. Sometimes it wears silk and speaks softly. Sometimes it pays in gold and asks for nothing but silence. And me, I survived. Because I always do.
I am Brother Caelan of the Abbey of St. Elric. I wear the robes of humility, speak the words of peace, and live by the rule. To the world, I am a man of God, but I carry a secret, a sin so heavy, no penance could ever cleanse it. I had a wife. Her name was Elira. She was light in a world of ash, a healer, a singer, a woman whose laughter could soften stone. We married in secret, beneath the old oak near the river, with no priest, no witnesses, only the stars. I was not yet a monk then, just a scholar, a man with ink-stained fingers and dreams of truth. We lived in a cottage on the edge of the forest. I taught children by day. She gathered herbs and sang to the sick. We were poor, but we were whole, until the church came. They arrived not with swords, but with scrolls. They said her healing was heresy, that her songs were pagan, that she consorted with spirits. I knew it was lies, but lies spoken by men in robes become law. They took her, bound her, accused her of witchcraft. I begged, I pleaded, I offered my life in exchange. They refused. Then they gave me a choice. They said, "If you truly serve God, you will do His will. You will cleanse her soul yourself." They handed me the blade. I remember the weight of it, not the steel, the silence, the way the world held its breath. They brought her to me, in the chapel, her hands bound, her eyes. They did not hate me. They pitied me. She said, "Kaelin, do what you must, but do not forget me. I did it. I killed her, not quickly, not cleanly." My hands shook. My heart broke. I screamed as I struck, and when it was done, I collapsed beside her, soaked in blood and grief. They made me a monk the next day. They said I had proven my devotion. I have worn these robes ever since. I chant the Psalms. I copy the scriptures. I teach the novices. I smile when they speak of mercy. But I do not sleep. I see her in every candle flame. I hear her voice in the wind. I feel her hand in mine when I pray. I have tried to forget. I have tried to forgive. But there are sins that do not fade, only fester. Sometimes late at night I walk to the old oak. I kneel. I speak her name. I ask her to haunt me, because if she does, then she is not gone. And if she is not gone, then perhaps I am not damned. So now you know, Brother Kaelin, monk, murderer, husband, may God have mercy on me.
You wouldn't know me by name. Most don't. I was never knighted, never painted in tapestries, never toasted in the halls of power. But I saw everything. From the shadows, from the hayloft, from behind the stall doors. My name is Bram. I was the stable boy at Castle Vermont. I mucked the stalls, brushed the coats, fed the war horses. I slept beside them, smelled like them, and sometimes, truth be told, I trusted them more than I trusted people. I came to Vermont when I was 12. My mother had died of the fever. My father had vanished into the mines. I was small, quick, quiet. The steward said I had stable hands. That meant I could lift a shovel and keep my mouth shut. I learned fast. Which oats the destriers liked, which stallions bit, which knights beat their horses when no one was looking. I kept my head down. I listened, and I remembered. The castle was a world unto itself. Stone walls, iron gates, whispers in every corridor. The nobles spoke of politics and war. The servants spoke of ghosts and poison. I spoke to no one. I was invisible, and that, as it turned out, was my greatest weapon. She was the youngest daughter of Lord Vermont, Lady Sorrel, not yet married, not yet broken. She had eyes like storm clouds and a voice that could silence a room. She came to the stables often, not for riding, but for escape. She spoke to me, asked my name, asked what I saw. I told her everything. She laughed, not cruelly, kindly. She said I had the eyes of a hawk and the ears of a fox. She said I was wasted on manure. She gave me a task. She said, "Listen, watch. Tell me what the knights say when they think no one hears." So I did. It started small. A whispered insult, a drunken boast, a knight bragging about a secret meeting in the woods. I told Cyril. She rewarded me with bread, coin, once even a cloak. Then it grew darker. Talk of rebellion, of letters smuggled in saddlebags, of a plot to kill the king when he visited for the harvest feast. Sorrel's face changed when I told her. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She just nodded. Days later, 3 knights were arrested. 1 hanged, 1 vanished. 1, Sir Aldrich, was found with his throat slit in the stables. I cleaned the blood myself. After that, I was no longer just a stable boy. I was Cerul's shadow. She taught me to read, to write, to memorize maps, to slip through doors without sound. She said I was her little dagger, but daggers cut both ways. One night, I overheard something I wasn't meant to. Sorel, speaking to a man in black robes. She said, "The boy knows too much. If he speaks, we all hang," I ran. I didn't get far. They caught me in the orchard, dragged me to the tower. Cerul came herself. She looked at me, not with kindness, not with cruelty, with calculation. She said, "You have 2 choices. Die now, or serve me forever." I chose life. From then on, I was no longer Bram the stable boy. I was Bram the courier, Bram the whisperer, Bram the ghost. I carried messages across kingdoms. I wore disguises. I lied to priests, to lords, to friends. I watched men die because of words I delivered. I hated it, but I was good at it. And Sorel rose. She married a duke, became a queen in all but name. And I, her dagger, was always nearby. I saw her poison a rival with honeyed wine. I saw her seduce a bishop to secure a treaty. I saw her weep once, alone, in the chapel. That was the only time I saw her human. Then came the boy, just like me. 12, small, quick, quiet. He worked in the kitchens. He saw something. He told me. I knew what would happen. I begged Cerul to spare him. She refused. She said, "One whisper can undo a kingdom." So I ran again. This time I didn't stop. I rode through the night, across rivers, through forests. I found the boy. I hid him. I told him, "Never trust anyone who calls you useful." Then I vanished. Now I live in the hills. I tend goats. I speak to no one. But I remember. I remember the sound of hooves on stone, the smell of blood and straw, the weight of secrets on a child's shoulders. They say the throne is built on honor, on law, on divine right. I know better. It's built on whispers, on lies, on boys like me. So if you ever meet a stable boy who watches too closely, who listens too well, be kind. He may be the only one keeping your kingdom from burning. And if you hear hooves in the night and no rider in sight, it might be me, still listening, still remembering, still dangerous.
You want to hear a love story? Fine, I'll give you one. But it won't be the kind you find in songs or stitched into tapestries. No knights in shining armour, no maidens rescued from towers. Just me, a girl from the mud, and a king who thought he saw something divine in the dirt. My name is Maren. I was born in a village so small it didn't have a name, just a well, a chapel, and a dozen huts that leaned on each other like drunkards. My mother died giving birth to me. My father was a miller who spoke more to his stones than to his daughter. I grew up with calloused hands and bare feet, chasing chickens and chewing on roots when the bread ran out. But they said I was beautiful, not in the way that nobles are, not polished, not perfumed. I had wild hair, eyes like river water, and a voice that made old men cry. I didn't know what to do with that. Beauty is dangerous when you're poor. It draws attention. And attention in my world was never kind. One day the king came through our village, not in procession, not with trumpets, just riding alone, cloaked, quiet. He stopped at the well. I was there fetching water. I didn't bow, I didn't curtsy, I didn't know who he was. He asked my name. I told him. He asked if I sang. I said yes. He asked me to sing, so I did. And that was the beginning. The next morning, soldiers came. They didn't ask. They didn't explain. They took me. lifted me onto a horse, wrapped me in furs, and rode for 3 days. I screamed, I fought, I bit one of them. He laughed. When we arrived, I saw towers, marble, gold, windows taller than my hut. They brought me to a chamber filled with silk and mirrors. They bathed me, painted me, dressed me like a doll. Then he came, the king. He said he couldn't sleep since hearing my voice, that I haunted him, that I was the answer to a question he hadn't known he was asking. He said I was his muse, his miracle, his madness. I told him he was insane. He smiled. He gave me a room, a garden, servants, tutors. He said I was free to leave, but the gates were always locked. He said I could speak my mind, but every word I spoke was written down. He said he loved me, but he never touched me. I tried to escape. Twice. The first time I was caught in the orchard. They brought me back with bruises. The second time I made it to the river. I swam. I nearly drowned. They found me half dead and chained me to my bed for a week. He visited me every day, read poetry, sang lullabies, told me stories of his childhood. He said he understood me, that we were the same, that the world was too loud, too cruel, too broken. I started to believe him. I started to forget my village, my father, the smell of wheat, the sound of chickens. I started to believe I was special, chosen, sacred. And then I started to hear voices, not his, not mine. Whispers in the walls, songs in the wind, laughter in the mirrors. I told the servants, they said I was tired. I told the king, he said I was awakening. He brought me books, ancient ones, filled with symbols and spells. He said I was more than a woman, that I was a vessel, that the gods spoke through me. I started to write, pages and pages, prophecies, visions, warnings. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I stared at the moon for hours, waiting for it to blink. One night I walked into the throne room, naked, covered in ink. I told the court that the king was a fraud, that the crown was cursed, that the palace would burn. They laughed. He didn't. He took me in his arms, whispered that I was perfect, that madness was truth, that I had finally become what he saw in me, and then he locked me in the tower. No more garden, no more silk, just stone and straw and a window too small to climb through. I screamed, I wept, I sang until my voice broke. And then I remembered. There was no king, there was no palace, there was no village. I was in a cell, in a monastery. The monks said I had been found wandering the woods, speaking in tongues, covered in blood. They said I had killed a man. They said I had once been a healer, a singer, a girl named Maren. They said I had gone mad. But I know the truth. I was loved by a king, and I killed him. Or maybe I was never loved. Maybe I was never sane. Maybe I am still in the tower waiting for the moon to blink. So if you hear singing in the woods, don't follow it. If you see a girl with river eyes, don't speak to her. And if you fall in love with her, run. Because love is madness, and madness always wins.
You've seen me, I reckon, or someone like me, sitting in the corner of a tavern, half-shadowed, nursing a mug of something strong and bitter. One arm, one eye, and a deck of cards that's older than the roof above your head. Folks say I'm cursed, that I sold my soul to the devil for a winning hand, that I once played cards with death himself and cheated him blind. They're wrong. I never played with death. I played with men far worse. My name's Garen, Garen the Left, they call me now. Used to be Garen the Quick, back when I had 2 hands and a smile that could charm the boots off a barmaid. I've played cards in every tavern from the coast of Vermont to the gutters of Black Hollow. I've won fortunes, lost them, slept in silk, woke up in straw. But the night I lost my arm, that was the night I learned what the game really costs. It was the feast of the hollow moon, a night when the nobles drink with the beggars and the priests pretend not to see. I was in a tavern called the Broken Stag, deep in the marshlands, a place where the ale tastes like regret and the walls sweat secrets. I'd been winning all night. My purse was fat, my fingers were fast, and my luck, well, it wasn't luck. See, I cheat. Not always, not often. Just when the stakes are high and the players are stupid. I've got a way with cards. A flick of the wrist, a twist of the thumb, and suddenly the Queen of Crowns is in my hand when she shouldn't be. I'd done it 100 times, 1,000. Never caught, never questioned, until that night. There were 4 of us at the table. A merchant with soft hands, a sellsword with a scar across his throat, a priest who smelled like incense and guilt, and a man I didn't know. Tall, quiet, eyes like whetstone. He didn't drink, didn't speak, just played. And he was good. Too good. I started losing, slowly, subtly. My tricks weren't working. My marks weren't biting. The cards felt heavy, wrong. I should have walked away, should have taken my coin and vanished into the fog. But pride's a poison. I stayed. The pot grew. Gold, gems, a deed to a vineyard, a ring that pulsed with magic. And then the stranger placed something on the table, a velvet pouch. Inside, I saw a glint, a dagger, bone-handled, etched with runes that made my teeth ache. He said, "Winner takes all." I nodded. My fingers danced. The cards flew. And I cheated. I swapped a card. Just one. The final draw, the Queen of Crowns. I laid down my hand, smiled. He looked at me, long, slow. Then he said, "You shouldn't have done that." The room went silent. The sellsword stood. The priest muttered a prayer. The merchant vanished. The stranger reached into his coat and pulled out a scroll, sealed in wax. He broke it, read it, then handed it to me. It was a warrant, signed by the king, for my arrest, for theft, fraud, treason. I laughed, said it was a joke. He didn't laugh. He said, "You've cheated nobles, dukes, knights. You've stolen secrets. You've sold lies. And now you've cheated me." I asked who he was. He said, "Justice." They dragged me outside, tied me to the post. The crowd gathered. Some cheered, some wept, some just watched. He took the dagger, and he cut. Not quick, not clean. I screamed. I begged. I cursed. He didn't flinch. When it was done, he held up my arm like a trophy. Then he tossed it into the fire. I passed out. Woke up 3 days later in a ditch, fevered, broken, alone. A healer found me, sewed me shut, fed me broth, told me I was lucky to be alive. I didn't feel lucky. I wandered for months, drank, gambled, lost, fought, cried. Then one night, I found a deck, old, worn, familiar. I shuffled and I smiled because I still had one hand, and the game never ends. Now I play in the corners, in the shadows. I don't cheat anymore, not because I'm afraid, because I learned something. The game isn't about winning, it's about surviving. And me, I'm still here, still playing, still dangerous. So, if you sit across from me and I deal you a hand, watch closely, because even with one arm, I never play fair.
They call me the Lantern Man, not because I carry light, but because I live in the dark. I tend the graves behind St. Morwen's Abbey where the fog never lifts and the crows speak in riddles. My name is Idran, though few use it. Most just nod and pass quickly, as if my shadow might stain them. I've been the gravekeeper here for 27 years. I dig, I bury, I mark the stones, I keep the records, I clean the bones. I sleep in the crypt when the wind howls too loud. I eat with the rats, I drink with the ghosts, and I listen. Because the dead, they speak, not with mouths, not with breath, but with memory, with fragments, with echoes. You have to be quiet to hear them. You have to be still. You have to be broken in just the right way. I didn't always hear them, not until the fever took my wife. I buried her myself, dug the hole too deep, sat beside it for 3 days, didn't eat, didn't blink. On the third night, I heard her voice. She said, "Don't follow me." I didn't, but I never stopped listening. Most of the dead are simple. They whisper regrets, lost loves, forgotten names. Some just hum, some scream, some say nothing at all. But one night, I buried a noble woman, Lady Alissandre of House Viremont. Her coffin was carved from ashwood, lined with velvet. Her face was painted, her hands folded around a rosary that smelled of roses and rust. They said she died of a sudden illness, that she passed peacefully in her sleep. They lied. I knew it the moment I touched her. Her body was cold, yes, but her soul was burning. I waited until the moon was high, until the abbey bells had rung. I lit my lantern. I sat beside her grave, and I listened. She spoke. Her voice was clear, sharp, like glass breaking in water. She said, "I was murdered." I didn't move. She said, "By my brother." I knew him. Lord Viremont, a man of silk and steel. He'd visited the abbey once, years ago, gave gold to the monks, smiled like a wolf. She said, "He poisoned me." Slowly, over months. He wanted my lands, my title. My silence, I asked why she was telling me. She said, "Because no one else will listen." I asked what she wanted. She said, "Justice." I laughed, bitterly. I'm a gravekeeper. I wear rags. I speak to bones. Who would believe me? She said, "You don't need belief. You need truth." So I dug. Not her grave, her past. I found her letters, hidden in the abbey archives. I found her journal, buried beneath the chapel floor. I found a vial, empty, cracked, behind the altar. And I found a monk, Brother Caelan, old, blind. He remembered her voice. He remembered her fear. He remembered the day she stopped singing. He said she was silenced. I asked him to speak. He refused. So I waited. 3 nights later, he came to me, pale, shaking. He handed me a scroll, sealed in wax. He said, "This is her will." It named her brother as her killer. I took it to the bishop. He burned it, said I was mad, said I was cursed, said I was dangerous. I was arrested, beaten, left in the crypt for a week. But the dead, they don't forget. Lady Alissandre whispered to the others. The knight buried beside her, the maid in the unmarked grave, the child in the corner plot. They all began to speak. They told me things, names, dates, secrets. I wrote them down. I carved them into the stones. I sang them in the wind. And slowly, people began to listen. Not the nobles, not the priests, the servants, the beggars, the forgotten. They came to me, asked questions, told stories, brought offerings. And one day, a boy came. He was 12, small, quiet. He said his mother had died, said she spoke to him in dreams, said she told him to find the lantern man. I asked her name. He said, "Alissandre." I wept. Now I'm not alone. The dead still speak. The living still doubt. But the truth, it grows. Like moss. Like fire. So if you ever pass St. Morwen's Abbey and you hear a whisper in the fog, Don't be afraid. It's just a memory, looking for a voice. And if you see a man with a lantern sitting beside a grave, listen. 'Cause the dead are never silent, and justice never sleeps.
They call me Mother Lyra, not because I bore children of my own, I never did, but because I've brought more lives into this world than any woman in the kingdom. Peasants, nobles, soldiers, thieves. I've delivered them all, screaming, gasping, bloody and beautiful. 47 winters I've walked this land, and in all that time not one child died in my hands, not one mother lost to the birthing bed. They say I'm blessed, touched by the divine, that my hands carry light. They're wrong. My hands carry memory, and one of those memories is not human. It was the winter of the black frost. The rivers froze solid, the wolves came down from the hills, and the stars hid behind a sky that wouldn't stop weeping. I was summoned to the manor of House Elvain, a noble family old as the stones beneath their feet. The lady of the house, Ceressa, was with child, her first, after 10 years of trying. They said she was sick, that the pregnancy was strange, that the child kicked too early, too hard, that she spoke in her sleep in tongues no priest could name. I should have refused, but pride is a poison. I went. The manor was quiet, too quiet, no servants, no fire, just Ceressa, pale and trembling, her belly swollen like a storm cloud. Her husband was away, hunting, they said, or hiding. She looked at me with eyes that didn't blink. She said, "You came." I nodded. She said, "It's almost time." I asked how she knew. She said, "He told me." I asked who. She said, "The father." I didn't ask again. The labour began at midnight. The wind howled, the candles flickered, the walls groaned. I prepared the linens, the water, the herbs. I whispered the prayers I always whispered, but they felt hollow. Ceressa screamed, not like a woman, like something breaking. The child came quickly, too quickly, and when I saw it, I dropped it. It wasn't a child. It had eyes, too many, skin like ash, fingers that curled the wrong way. It didn't cry, it laughed. Ceressa reached for it, held it, sang to it. I backed away. She said, "Isn't he perfect?" I said nothing. She said, "He's mine. He's ours. He's meant to be." I asked what she meant. She said, "He's the beginning." I looked at the creature. It looked back, and I felt something move inside me. Not fear, not revulsion, recognition. I took the blade from my satchel, the one I always carry just in case. I stepped forward. Ceressa stood between us. She said, "You've never lost a child. Don't start." Now I said, "That's not a child." She said, "It is." "And it's mine," I said. "It's not yours. It's his." She smiled, and then she lunged. We fought, screamed. The creature watched, silent, still. I struck her, not to kill, but to stop. She fell, and the creature crawled to her, wrapped its arms around her neck, whispered something I couldn't hear. Then it looked at me, and it spoke. It said, "You're next." I ran. I left the manor, left the child, left Ceressa. I told no one, until now, because something is happening. Children are being born with eyes too bright, with voices too deep, with dreams they shouldn't have, and I hear laughter in the wind. I still deliver babies, still hold mothers' hands, still whisper prayers, but I carry a new blade, and I listen for the laugh, because I know what I saw, and I know what's coming. So if you ever hear of a child born under a black frost, in a house with no fire, to a mother who speaks in tongues, run. And if you see me there, pray I'm not too late.
You've heard this voice before. I spoke once, but I did not tell you who I was. Not then. I waited, because truth, like tincture, must be distilled slowly. I am the one they whisper about in the corridors of the Abbey, the one whose chambers smell of sulfur and secrets. I'm the alchemist. My name is Tolric, once a scholar, now something else. It began, as most disasters do, with ambition. I had spent years studying the sacred texts, scrolls smuggled from Alexandria, tomes inked in blood and bound in skin. I sought the philosopher's stone, yes, but not for gold, not for immortality. I sought it to prove that the divine could be touched by mortal hands. My laboratory was beneath the old chapel. Stone walls, iron chains, a furnace that never cooled. I worked alone, by choice, by necessity. The church tolerated me only because I cured their gout and brewed their tonics. But they feared me, rightly so. One night I succeeded, or so I thought. I combined mercury, sulfur, and salt. I recited the incantation. The mixture turned red, then gold, then black. It pulsed, it breathed, and then it screamed. The next day, a man arrived, hooded, silent. He did not knock. He simply appeared. He said he was from the Order of the Veil, that they had been watching me, that I had crossed the line. I laughed. Foolishly. He did not. He warned me. The stone is not a prize. It is a gate, and I had opened it. Before he left, he placed a vial on my table. Inside was a liquid that shimmered like moonlight. He said, "Drink this when the shadows speak your name." Then he vanished. Days passed. I continued my work. But something had changed. The furnace burned without fuel. My dreams were filled with symbols I did not understand. Rats died when they entered my chamber. My own reflection began to shift, subtle at first. My eyes too bright, my skin too pale. Then the voices came. They spoke in tongues older than Latin. They called me by names I had never heard. They offered knowledge, power, but always at a cost. I tried to resist. I failed. One night I woke to find my hands stained with blood. A goat had been sacrificed. I had no memory of doing it. I knew then the stone was not a thing. It was a presence, and it had chosen me. I took the vial the stranger had left. I held it to the light. It pulsed like a heartbeat. I drank. Pain, fire, light, then silence. When I woke, the laboratory was gone, burned to ash. The chapel above had collapsed. I was buried beneath rubble, but alive. The stone was gone. Or perhaps it had returned to wherever it came from. I left the city that night, disguised, forgotten, but not free. You've heard this voice before, but now you know its truth. Alchemy is not science. It is seduction. It promises transformation, but it demands sacrifice. If you ever find a scroll that speaks of gold from lead, of life from death, burn it. If you ever hear a whisper in the flame, run. And if you ever meet a man named Talric, do not listen, not even to his voice.
They used to call me Rotgut Reina, not because I brewed it, because I drank it. Every night, every morning, every hour the sun dared to shine. I lived in the back corner of the Crooked Antler Tavern, beneath a broken chandelier and a pile of regrets. I had no coin, no family, no teeth worth mentioning. Just a flask, a laugh, and a talent for losing everything. And now, they call me king. I know what you're thinking, that I must have tricked someone, slept with someone, killed someone, and you'd be right. Eventually, but it didn't start that way. It started with a bet. I was 3 mugs deep into a barrel of swamp ale when a nobleman stumbled into the tavern. Fancy boots, feathered hat, eyes like a man who'd never been punched. He was looking for someone. Said he needed a guide through the Mirewood. Said he'd pay in gold. I told him I'd do it for a bottle. He agreed. We left at dawn. Him on a horse, me on a donkey named Spite. The Mirewood is cursed, they say. Twisted trees, whispering winds, beasts that wear human faces. I'd been through it once, barely, but I figured if I died, at least I'd died drunk. We got lost. Of course we did. He panicked. I drank. Then we found a ruin. Old stone, half swallowed by vines. He said it was a temple, said it was sacred, said we shouldn't go in. I went in. Inside, I found a throne, cracked, cold, covered in dust. I sat on it. Why not? My feet hurt. My flask was empty. I figured it was just a rock. Then the ground shook. Then the nobleman screamed. Then the throne lit up. Turns out it wasn't a temple. It was a test. A relic from the old kings. A throne that chose its ruler not by blood, but by need, by fate, by madness. And it chose me. I passed out, woke up in a palace. They said I was the chosen, that the throne had spoken, that the kingdom was mine. I laughed, loud, long. Then I asked for a drink. They gave me wine, real wine, not the kind that peels your throat. I drank, I ruled, poorly. I made laws about naps, declared cheese a sacred right, appointed my donkey Spot as royal advisor. People thought I was mad. I was, but I was also lucky, because while I played the fool, the real fools revealed themselves. Nobles who plotted, priests who poisoned, generals who lied. I saw them, I remembered them, and one by one I removed them. Not with swords, with stories, with whispers, with accidents. They say I'm a drunk. They're right. But I'm also a survivor, because when you've lived in the gutter, you know how to spot the rats. Now I sit on the throne, still drink, still laugh. But I watch, always. And if you ever find yourself in a tavern and you see a man with a flask and a crown, buy him a drink. He might be your king or your ruin.
You've listened long enough. The fire in the furnace has dimmed. The vials are still. The whispers have quieted. For now, I've told you of the stone, of the scream it made, of the man who came without knocking, of the price I paid to touch the divine. And perhaps somewhere in the telling, you saw a piece of yourself, a hunger, a shadow, a question you have never dared to ask aloud. That's the thing about alchemy. It's not just metal and flame. It's transformation. And transformation always begins with destruction. So sleep well tonight, if you can. But if you dream of red light, of symbols that move when you blink, of voices that speak in your own tongue, but say things you've never known, don't be afraid. It's just the echo of the gate. And if you wake with ash on your hands and gold in your mouth, well, you'll know I was here. Good night, listener. May your sleep be quiet and your questions stay unanswered. For now.